let's talk about how the state of Arizona is managing more than 9 million acres of land. Now, this isn't about setting up parks. Nope, this is about money. Specifically, it's about using a really powerful AI to turn all that land into a massive funding engine for its public schools. So let's get into how they're pulling this off. Okay, so let's start with the sheer scale of the challenge here. Just imagine you're in charge of a real estate portfolio that's bigger than some entire US states, and you have this strict legal duty to make as much money as you possibly can from it for the public good. So, how do you decide which piece of land to sell? When's the right time to sell it? And for how much? That's the billion-dollar question Arizona absolutely had to answer.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll dig into the big challenge they were up against. Then we'll meet the living intelligence engine they created. After that, we'll get into the weeds of how it turns all that raw data into meaningful scores, see how that leads to way smarter decisions, and finally, we'll look at what this all means for the future of planning. Right, so let's set the stage with the problem. For decades, managing this much land was, a slow, manual job. But as Arizona just kept growing and growing, the old way of doing things was really starting to crack under the pressure. You see, the traditional approach was all built around these static 5-year plans. We're talking about massive reports that were pretty much outdated the second they were printed. It was slow, it was manual, and it was always reactive. The new way? Well, it just flips that whole idea on its head. It's a continuous AI-powered system that's dynamic, automated, and it's always learning in real time. Now, here's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. The Arizona State Land Department isn't your typical government agency. It's what's known as a fiduciary asset manager, and that's a legal term with some serious teeth. It means their one and only job is to get the best financial return possible for their beneficiaries, and that's mainly Arizona's K-12 schools. This isn't about what they feel like doing. It's a strict legal and ethical mandate. And that entire mandate really boils down to this one single critical question. Every decision they make, every analysis they run, and this entire AI system we're talking about, it's all built to answer this. When, where, and how should land be disposed, which means sold or leased, to maximize the long-term value of the trust? That's it. That's the mission. So how in the world do you answer a question that complex across millions of acres all at once? Well, Arizona turned to technology. So let's meet the hero of our story, the CityPulse Land Intelligence Engine. The best way to think of CityPulse is like a living brain for all of Arizona's land. It's a statewide platform that's constantly pulling in data about the land itself, the market, infrastructure, you name it. It then scores every single piece of land and generates strategies in real time. But here's the kicker. It produces explainable recommendations. It doesn't just spit out an answer, it actually shows its work, which is huge. Okay, so a living brain sounds cool, but how does this engine actually work? How does it turn this giant sea of raw information into a clear, actionable insight? Let's pop the hood and take a look. It's basically a 4-step process. Step 1 is data integration, and this is really important. The system runs on top of the state's existing data vaults. It's not replacing them, it's automatically curating all that raw info, pulling in everything from parcel maps to water rights. Then comes criteria scoring, where it measures each parcel against 10 key signals. Third is market intelligence, where it turns all that data into things like demand forecasts. And finally, you get the final ranking, a dynamic, prioritized plan of which parcels are truly ready for the market. And these are the kinds of signals the AI is actually looking for. I mean, as you can see, it's not just about how big a piece of land is. It's asking a whole series of really critical questions. How close is it to a city? Does it have access to water? What do the roads look like? Using machine learning, it considers literally everything from market conditions to environmental risks, all to create a single, holistic score for every piece of land. And this is the part that's so different from the old way. This isn't a one-and-done report card. No, every single parcel of land across the entire state is continuously being scored on 4 key things. Its readiness to be sold, the risks involved, the perfect market timing, and how much it depends on new infrastructure. It's a truly living analysis. So we've seen how it works, but what's the payoff? Why does this all matter? Let's talk about the strategic value this brings to the table, how it leads to smarter, faster, and ultimately much more profitable decisions for Arizona schools. Okay, now this is where it gets really powerful. Planners don't have to be data scientists to use this system. Because it understands natural language, you can just ask it questions in plain English, almost like you're talking to an expert analyst. So, for instance, a planner could ask a question about residential development. A question like that used to take weeks, maybe even months, of digging through maps and spreadsheets. Now, they get an instant, data-backed answer. That is an absolute game changer for speed and precision.
Or how about this? They can use it to find problems before they actually become problems. Asking about which industrial sites are blocked by wastewater capacity lets them spot future bottlenecks and start working on them now, instead of letting a potential multi-million-dollar deal fall apart down the line.
And maybe most impressively, it's an incredible tool for strategic timing. The AI can look at all the market conditions and actually advise them to wait, to be patient. It can pinpoint parcels that are appreciating in value so quickly that holding off on a sale could mean a much, much bigger return. See, that's the difference between just selling land and truly managing a massive asset portfolio. And all of that leads directly to the primary payoff. We're talking about financial optimization. By using this intelligence, the trust can sell land when demand is peaking, they can avoid selling off valuable assets too early, and at the end of the day, they maximize the money flowing into that permanent fund for K-12 education. But it's not just about more money. It's also about being way faster and a whole lot smarter. Months of manual work are now just real-time queries. The state doesn't have to rely as much on expensive outside consultants. They can spot risks way earlier, and it makes the entire process more transparent and easy to defend.
So when you put this all together, it really signals a fundamental shift. I mean, this isn't just a small upgrade to an old process. What we're looking at here is a whole new era of public asset management.
And this right here is the key takeaway. The final product isn't another big, dusty report that's just going to sit on a shelf. The output is a living disposition plan, a dynamic strategy that's constantly evolving in real time as markets shift and cities grow around it.
There's a quote from the project that just sums it all up perfectly. It's about enabling people to operate like a modern, data-driven team, constantly optimizing their strategy to fulfill that core mission for Arizona's schools. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final question. Arizona's doing this for land management, which is amazing, but what else is possible? What other complex government jobs, from planning infrastructure to public health, could be completely transformed by trading in those static reports for this kind of living intelligence?